Hello and welcome to another session of AZMAT System tutorials. We are basically continuing from the last tutorial, but on a different subject, slightly different menu. Let me just show you, we are running Windows XL version 14, 2010 under Windows XP operating system. So we can just have a quick look at that. File help shows Microsoft Excel 2010 as XL version 14. Additional version and copyright information, if you click there, then you'll see again basically the same one, Excel 2010 version 14, but if you click on the system info, it gives you the operating system name in a separate message box. We have OS name, operating system name is Microsoft Windows XP Professional. Okay. So we are running Excel 2010 under Windows XP. Excel, as we've already started this system, as you know, all the AZMAT System menus are under, because it's Excel 2010, from Excel 2007 onwards. So the AZMAT System menus or your own menus, if you write your own programs, you'll see they can only be accessed via this add-ins, which is at the end of all Excel menus you have. You know, some people may not have the developer menu here. I've had attached it here because I want you to be able to do also the developing. So if the people who are simply using, they may not have that. But in any case, the add-ins will always be at the end, rightmost of all the existing Excel menus. So click add-ins, then you see all your own menus. In this case, the AZMAT menus, J, K, so on, all the way up to N menu, which is where you will be adding your own commands. We'll go into that later. In this particular session, I'm going to go into the utility menu. We'll cover these commands. You'll notice that in the last tutorial, we covered, if you look at the last tutorial, X menu, just this one command, discount factors. It took about 70 minutes, would you believe? 70. Just to cover one command, 70 minutes. Whereas here, you will see that because it's fairly comprehensive, fairly complicated command, how to use it and various things. Whereas some of these commands in utility menus, they're very, very simple ones. So it will take only a few minutes each one. So it's not the number of commands. And as you can see here, it's quite a few commands here. But most of these commands will only take a few minutes to explain. So let's begin here. The first one here, in this utility menu, utility menus here. I'm just going to just come out of it as well altogether. So if I click somewhere here, first thing I like to do is actually just save the AZMAT System data file. This is the user file, aa.xlsx. In this case, I'm using AA as my initials. You would use your own initials or whatever you'd like to call it, 2-letter ID or your own user data file. All your files will be saved by AZMAT System using those 2 letters. So choose whatever 2-letter combination you would like to use, except ZR, ZN, and so on. There are a few restrictions. So I'd advise you not to use any files, any of your two-letter ID beginning with Z, because it has a special meaning in AZMAT system, in the file system I'm using. So, but other than that, it's fairly open. Use any other combination of the two-letter ID. And all your files will then be, AZMAT system will always use the same two-letter IDs to begin. Let me show you. So if I go in here, for example, file open, right now, this is the AZMAT folder or directory under the G USB stick, G drive I have, under where I'm running the this particular version of Excel form. So here, so it's a G drive. Under this is G:\AZMAT. That's where the user files will be. We'll go into a minute later to show you where the program files are. But as you can see here, this is the AA.xlsx. That's the file I have here, because this is Excel version 2010. So all files beginning from Excel 2007 onwards, they have 4-letter extensions. You may notice here I have a file AA.xls. So in the same drive, in the same directory or same folder, you could also have the files beginning with XLS as well if you wish. That was because I was running Excel 2003 earlier on in other tutorials. So it used that file. But in here, if you notice here, most of these files here, as I can see, but one other thing is you have ini, so initialized file, your own. So for every user has that. So where your preferences for AZMAT system, you can specify them there, and AZMAT system will use those. But later they can be changed as well. So if I later on, when in this tutorial, say the ini file, that's what I mean. Your ini file will be your two initials, the ones you have chosen, your ID. In this case, I'm using AA. So as you can see, all these files begin with AA. If I have other files here, they will be, because I have placed them with they could have other names as well, but not the one placed by, created, or saved by AZMAT system. AZMAT system will only place your user files in that particular directory, which in this case happens to be G:\AZMAT. That's the user area. This is the way AZMAT system is designed. All your user files will be like it's placed in that particular. The idea is, for example, imagine if it's an investment bank. There are dozens or even hundreds of dealers and traders on their own machine. They are using AZMAT system. The main program is coming from one of these, probably network directory or folder. But their own files, they don't want their own files getting mixed up with hundreds of other people. And literally, believe me, your own files could become in here. I've only got like about 20 files, but you could have maybe, who knows, even 100 or more files. And the more you use AZMAT system, depending on the number of the reports files you generate while using AZMAT system. So the idea was not to mix up other people's files with a particular user. So that particular folder, under the root directory of that, so that particular, whatever they C, D, E, F, G, whatever it's called, that particular the drive, under there, AZMAT, that will be the folder where all the user file of that particular user will be stored. So every user will have their own PC, obviously. So on that PC's hard disk, the idea was these will be stored, and the program file could be running from one central place, AZMAT program file, and all the AZMAT program files will be stored there, one central place, and used by all the users. But your own files will be stored in your own area. So this is just to show you that all files, as you can see, begin with A. What they are, we'll see later on. This particular case, AA, B AZMAT, Y AZMAT, X, and so on. They are basically different financial calculation, investment banking calculation models, files for that particular user. But there are also other files. We won't go into that, what they are, but just to show you, as you can see, all files beginning with AA. So choose your ID. They don't have to be your initials. Choose something you'd like to see, because you will see lots of them. All your files begin with those two-letter IDs, the one you choose to begin with as a user of AZMAT System on your own PC. Okay, we're not going to open anything in here. So you can have, for example, in here, different versions of Excel. So you could use on the same machine, in the same PC, and the same folder. It has, like, in this case, all 4-letter extensions, but the INI, for example, it is 4 letters, ini.xlsx. It also has ini.xls, and so on. But so you could have if you use 2 different versions of Excel, an older version which has the 3-letter file extension, and the later versions with 4-letter file extension. They could be the same. Like I have ini.xls and ini.xlsx, 2 separate files. And this will be used, the 4-letter extension one will be used when I'm using Excel 2007 onwards, 2007, 2010, and so on. And the ini.xls will be used when I'm using up to any version of Excel from Excel 5, 7, and so on, all the way up to Excel 2003. Because up till then, we're using only 3-letter file extension. Excel was using that. Okay, let's come out. I can click cancel or press the cancel key, has same effect, come out. That was just to show you. So let's just save this data file. So I'll use utility menu, I save as my data file. It enters the current time and date. This is because I have got here AZ date time. That the 2-letter range name I have defined as AZ date time, just to show you. So whenever you have AZ date time and you use save, like in this case, save AZMAT data file, use one of these AZMAT system commands to save. If that name exists, either 2 adjacent cells, they could be one next to each other, they could be one below each other, like that, vertically or horizontally, 2 adjacent cells. AZMAT system will put the date in the first cell, and the time in the next one. useful to have that so that you have a date and time so you know when it will. But it's also used extensively in AZMAT system. Yes, date and as you will see later on, in or in other tutorials you may have already seen in the, for example, in the rates file, rates or curve file, which is that like ZRUST.XLSX and so on, where it is very important for a user in an investment bank, for example, to know who had last edited that file, made changes to it and saved it, either changing the prices or the whole file structure or anything. So AZMAT system keeps track of that and the date and time and the ID, the two-letter ID. In this case, in my case, it will be AA. It'll say it was last edited by AA on such and such date, and that time it was last saved. So anyone using, they will know who had last changed the prices or whatever else in that particular rates file, which is, there are several rates files. In this case, it is the US dollar currency code, so it's USD. Or there could be several. The user may have made calling US 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Right, so let's look at these commands. So in the add-ins, I have to keep clicking add-ins before I can get to the utility menu. As I said, in earlier versions of Excel, up to 2003, the AZMAT system commands, JKXG, all these could be added. They would be directly on that line. So you could simply click the Y menu, or Z menu, or N menu, and so on. But from Excel 2003 onwards, you have to click to see or use any of these AZMAT system commands. You could use control keys, of course. You could use without going to menu. But if you want to use or see any of the AZMAT system or your own commands, as you will be able to hopefully develop by using AZMAT system and learn how to use. And in this, particularly in this case, in the N menu, these are specifically designed so you can add your own commands and enter your own commands here, for example, or use these commands. All the Excel macro commands are here, and the Excel VBA commands are here, specifically designed for you. So right now we'll go into the U menu and go through these commands one by one. So save AZMAT data file is basically, as we've seen before, saves the AZMAT data file over the original in own area. So the own area is the one I went through earlier on. So it's the AZMAT folder or directory. So saves AZMAT data file over the original in the own area. This command, and that own area is user's own area. So it could be like C:\AZMAT. Or in this particular case, I have got here as G:\AZMAT. AZMAT system will inform the user if AZMAT data file is not currently open. So if I had this file closed, if I didn't have this file open, and I'm saying save AZMAT data file, it will let the user know that this file is not currently open. The command can be used whether or not AZMAT data file is the currently active file. So I could be on here. So see this. You've got 29th August, 9:06 a.m. That's when I had saved it last. So if I am on the, for example, on the US dollar currency curve, right, that's my current file. Although I have the ZRGPY file open and also that's my data file, AA.XLSX. So, but that is not the currently active. The currently active file is this one, ZRUST. The tick mark is there, and which is I can see here. I can still use the save AZMAT data file. It does not have to be the current file. by going the add-ins U menu and say save AZMAT data file. Reason I can use it even if it's not active, because I'm actually telling AZMAT System which file to save. I'm not saying save current file, remember. I'm saying save AZMAT data file. And that file, AZMAT System knows which file it is. And as long as it's open, it will save. So last time we saved it, if you remember, it was 9:06 a.m. You can just have a quick look at it. 9:06 a.m. So it will put the date, which will be current date is the same, obviously, but the time, which will not be 9:06 anymore. That was the time it was last saved. So if I change the file to here, for example, I can go in AZMAT, utility menu, U menu, say save AZMAT data file, and put in the current date and time. So it's done that and saved it, and back to the file I was here. If I go and have a look at it now, it's 9:13 a.m. So it was 9:06 a.m. So it was 7 minutes ago when I last saved it. Now I've saved it, and I don't have to be on that file in order to use that command. The first two characters of the AZMAT data file refer to the ID of the current user. Remember, these two characters, this is the UID. Name of AZMAT data file is of the form ID.xls. In earlier versions of Excel, up to Excel 2003, from Excel 2007 onwards, it will have, so the two-letter ID .xlsx. This file is created by AZMAT for each and every new user. So when you start AZMAT System, when you give after entering the password for AZMAT System, it comes up with the ID of the user. And at that time, when you enter your ID for the first time, what AZMAT System does is checks in the user area, which is the AZMAT folder under the root directory of that particular drive. So in this particular case, as we saw in here, it was in the AZMAT folder under G. So G:\AZMAT, or it could be C:\AZMAT, and so on. So under the root directory of the drive, you started AZMAT System from. So it will be stored there. So what AZMAT System does first thing is when you start as a new user, very first time AZMAT System, it checks that particular ID, the ID you provide, like in this case AA, is that particular for the AA.xls. If I'm using earlier version of Excel up to Excel 2003 or later version from Excel 2007 onwards, let's check whether AA.xlsx, does that file exist? If the file exists, it will open it. If it does not, it will create it and then open it for the user to use. So it will already have this AZMAT AZ parameters area here. AZ, that is the name of this parameters area. Right? But if I click somewhere else, that AZ will not be there anymore. There, it's gone. So AZ here, I put it here, is the name of this area, AZ. So that is the area will already be created, will have some, all these will be written there. It will have some of these example data already in there for you to use. So the next command, let's proceed here. So the next command, so that was the save AZMAT data file. Overwrite original file. It's very simple. because all it does here, as the name implies, saves current file over the original. Note that in earlier versions of Excel, we could have the actual larger description of whatever file as I move along the cursor, larger description, right, like Excel version 7, for example, will be shown in the status bar in this line here. But later versions of Excel, that facility is being taken off. So whatever you want to enter, the description of the command, have to enter it in here. So the overwrite original file basically saves the current file over the original. So whatever the file is, it overwrites it with the same name. It does not save it as a different name. It saves over the original version. So this command saves the currently active file. So whatever file you have, for example, you cannot say overwrite original file by being on one file, for example, ZRUSD, and then wanting to override that. In this case, you could use, because it is your data file, you could say AZMAT data file, but if it was some other file with some other name, you couldn't overwrite it. You have to be on that file. So that file must be the active file in order to use this command. Okay, so you, in order to say overwrite original file, it will overwrite the currently active file over the last version. This command saves the currently active file over the original version of the file on disk, provided the file is not read-only. So, for example, I can't go and use this file on this particular file because it's open as read-only. So it's not read-write. So if it's read-only, it means you cannot write over it. So you cannot use this command, save overwrite original file on that particular, while that file is active. AZMAT System will inform the user if the command cannot be carried out because the file is read-only. Note that even if the file is read-only, any changes made to the file can still be saved using one of these save as commands. So if the file is read-only, like here, you can use one of the Excel commands if you had made any changes. But note, in this particular version of Excel version 2010, and the same applies to from 2007 onwards, you cannot, if the file is locked. I can't even, if I'm clicking the mouse here, AZMAT System won't even let me go anywhere else because this file is read-only and I cannot change anything physically. But in earlier versions of Excel, you could move the mouse, you could even change it and then save it as a different version. It cannot, it will not, even earlier, of course, whenever you open a file as read-only, it will never, you'll never be able to save it as the same version straight away on that particular, at that moment in time. You could save it as with a different version, but in these versions, later versions of Excel, you can't even make any changes to it. But so in older versions of Excel, you can open a file as read-only, make changes, and save it as a different file. But in this particular case, because all these cells I have locked, this is very important file, these reference curve files, because in an investment bank, the dealers and traders, etc., might be trading millions of dollars worth of bonds using these files. for example, US dollar reference curve, as this one is, or the British pound sterling, JPY, and Deutschmark, and euros, and so on. So even if the file is read-only, any changes made to the file can still be saved using one of the save as commands, right? But that only applies to, depending on which version of Excel you're using. This version of Excel, if the file is read-only and is locked, cells are locked, you can't even change anything. Next one. So if you go here, utility menu, change ini file. So remember, I had mentioned briefly ini file. Ini file is the one with your initials. In my case, it'll be AA, INI, right? AA ini dot either XLS if it's up to Excel version 2003, or onwards, Excel version 2007 onwards, it'll be aaini.xlsx, 4-letter ID. Sorry, 4-letter extension. So they change the ini file. Opens the AZMAT ini file, initial parameters file of the current user. This command mainly opens the above file. Right? If you say change ini file, it just simply opens it. It does not actually make any changes. After making any changes, the user should save the file by using either the overwrite original file command, overwrite original command file, overwrite original file command, rather, from the utility menu U or the curve menu K. So let me just check that here. Overwrite original file. I originally had it, but I've taken it off, I think. Save curves, because these are save curve changes. The overwrite original file is now only in the utility menu. Originally, I also had it under the K menu, but that one is changed now to the save curve changes, because when you're using the K menu, that's it. It is all, when you're using curve file, so you're using that particular menu, so it's specifically for curve changes. So I put that one there. But it has enough, all these commands. I've taken off the override. All the utility commands are in here. So in here, overwrite original file is here. This will work on any file, even the curve file. If you have it, overwrite original file, you just overwrite the currently open file, which is active as well. So the change ini file basically just simply opens your initial parameters file. The changes do not take effect until the next session of AZMAT. Remember, if you change the ini file, AZMAT system looks at that particular file, not while the session is already open. So you are in Excel session. The Excel session is already open. Started here, I'm in here. Any initial parameters file, it is read. All those initial parameters are read at the beginning of Excel session. So once you have an Excel session open, an AZMAT session in here, and you made some changes to the ini file by opening the change ini file, make some changes. For example, your preferences, display results on or off, screen update on or off, all these things, for example, you can specify an AZMAT system to begin with. In order to, for AZMAT system to use those changes, you have to end the current AZMAT session and then restart. At that point, then it will start using the whatever changes you made to the ini file. Okay, so the changes do not take effect until the next session of AZMAT. If the changes are to take effect immediately, the user should do the following. Save the AZMAT ini file. So first you open change ini file, open it, make whatever changes it is, save by using overwrite original file, or even even Excel file save command if that's what you want to do. So save that particular ini file, then use the appropriate quit command. Then use from the J menu the quit command, whether you want to save, do not save any files, provided you've already saved the file you wanted to save, or save files beginning with user ID. That means save all files beginning with your user ID, remember? So in my case, it will be all files beginning with AA, not just the data file, but I could have had other, say, for example, these calculation models open, assets or bounds and so on, and the AZMAT system will open the appropriate database files, associated files with those calculation models. Not all of them have that, but some have. So it will open those files as well. And so at this point, when you say quit AZMAT, save files beginning with user ID, you're telling AZMAT system to open all your files, basically, that are currently open, all AZMAT system files that begin with your user ID AA. They're not the AZMAT system program files, remember, they are your user files. And then begin a new session. So in order to AZMAT system to use the initial parameters file, the changes you have made to the ini file, your initial parameters file, make change, open it, make changes, overwrite the file, save the file, and go close the AZMAT session, and then restart. And then it will use those changes that you made to your initial parameters file, AA_ini.xls or AA_ini.xlsx. Next command, check if any cash flow date, CF, DF date is before today, on or off. Check if any CF or DF. So it's cash flow, CF cash flow, DF is discount factor date, is before today, on or off. So if you use that particular command, before today is the valuation date. So it's important. For example, if you're using some old cash flow date, in this particular case, 30th of August, today is not 30th of August. As we can see here, it's 29th of August. So I'm okay in this case, it's there. But say on 31st of August, if I wanted to use this cash flow and I may have forgotten to see, or that this particular, the first date must be at least today or onwards. So the valuation date has to be. So it cannot be, the valuation date cannot be before, before today. So you use very quickly that command to check if any cash flow or discount factor date is before today, on or off. So if you have it on, it'll always check that before, and if there is a cash flow date or discount factor date is before today, before the valuation date, the system will let you know. And see what happens here. So turns on or off that particular check, basically. This command is used to turn on and off the comparison of the cash flow or discount factor dates with the current date, which is the valuation date. If the setting is on, this command turns it off. So it turns on and off. Remember, it's toggles. So if it's on, it turns it off. If it's off, it turns it on. If the setting is off, this command turns it on. User is always notified of the new change setting. So if it is off, it'll turn it on and tell you that this setting is now on. And if it's off, if it's on and you turn it off by using it again, that command, it'll turn it off and tell you with a brief message that this command is now off, turned off. So it'll always tell you notify the user of the new change setting. At the beginning of each new session, AZMAT System turns this setting to the value found in the AZMAT ini file. That is your id.xls or xlsx of the current user. Unless the initial setting is changed by the user during the session, it will stay the same throughout this current session. Okay, that setting will not change, will stay whatever it was in your ini file when AZMAT System started, unless it is changed during a session by using this command. If the setting is on, AZMAT System compares the cash flow or discount factor dates with the valuation date whenever any valuation command is used from the X menu. So whenever you used from X menu any of these commands, AZMAT System will check that. Will check compares the cash flow or discount factor dates with the valuation date to make sure that any valuation, any of those dates, if they are before the current valuation date, they are changed. Sorry, that they are checked, and it'll notify you if it's before today. If the setting is on, AZMAT System compares the cash flow or discount factor dates with the valuation date whenever any valuation command is used from the X menu. If any date is before the valuation date, the user is notified and is asked to decide whether to proceed with the command or not. So for some reason, if you wanted the date to be before valuation date, you could still decide. You are the main person who decides. AZMAT System doesn't decide. It just simply informs you, the user, that that is so. And if you want to proceed or not with the command, you decide whether to proceed. If the setting is off, AZMAT System does not compare the cash flow or discount rate dates with the valuation date and proceeds with the command normally. So if the setting is off and you don't want AZMAT System to tell you that date is to even check it, so it will just carry on with the command normally. And if the setting is on, it'll check it. And if it's before today, it'll let you know that that particular date is before today. But if you want to proceed with the command, if you say, yes, I'm going to proceed, it will go ahead with the command. Determine the cash flow or discount factor dates area on or off. Turns on or off whether to determine cash flow dates area before each calculation. So what it does is this command is used to specify to AZMAT System whether or not it should determine the cash flow or discount factor dates area before each calculation. If the setting is on, this command turns it off. If the setting is off, this command turns it on. The user is always notified of the new change setting. At the beginning of each new session, AZMAT System turns this setting to the value found in the AZMAT ini file, like your id.xls or xlsx of the current user. Unless the initial setting is changed by the user during the session, it will stay the same throughout the current session, just like the others. Setting will stay the same during the session. Only at the beginning, it will get that from the ini file. If the setting for determine cash flow or discount factor dates area is on, AZMAT System does the following. So if it's on, this is what happens. Before each calculation, cash flow dates or discount factor dates column is checked. Right? It checks the discount factor dates or the cash flow dates column. Cash flow dates column or discount factor dates column is checked before each command, before each calculation. Starting from the top cell of the named range. So if this is my CF date 1, so it starts from the top cell down the column until AZMAT System comes across text characters, spaces or blank instead of a date in the dates column. So if it comes across, keeps checking each column until it comes across with either text. So instead of a date, it could have, for example, something here, some text, whatever could be written there, and it comes across that. Or comes across a blank cell. Or if at the beginning of each new session, let's see here. So starting from the top cell of the name range, it checks down the column until it comes across text characters or spaces. So in this particular case, for example, I'm just going to undo this. So I want my original date back there. So they're back to the original date. So until it comes across a blank cell, like in this case, or text characters which I had entered, or spaces. Remember, I'm entering space character, which is not the same as a blank, which has nothing. So this has the spaces. So if I enter, say if I want to change it, you'll see it won't be my mouse, the cursor won't go there. It'll be about here somewhere because I had entered so many spaces. There. See, it's not here. There it will be if it has nothing in there, completely blank. So if I come out of it, escape, and I undo, I'm back to there. So in here, for example, if I do that, because it is blank, I think, or I can make sure by pressing the delete key, in which case it will take off everything, whatever is there. So the cursor will be here when I want to change. There, nothing is there. Can't go any left anymore. So it's right at the beginning. Escape key to come out. So it is blank cell. If I enter something here, cells, spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've entered 5 space characters. So until it comes across with either space characters, which you can't see, but it is spaces, or some text, or blank cell. So if I press the delete key, right, it said deleted whatever space characters I had. So now if I want to enter, it will be right at the beginning. Cursor there. So it has taken off whatever was there. It's nothing there. It's a blank cell. So it keeps on checking one by one column there, and until AZMAT System comes across either text characters, spaces, or a blank instead of a date in the dates column. So there's a date there. It then takes the dates from the top cell down to the row above the invalid date row. So it goes down. So my whole this TF date area is there. CF date, for example, there. And if I have this setting is on, U menu, utility menu, determine cash flow or discount factor dates area, on or off. So initially I have it on. So if I have it on, what will happen is it will go down, check that, comes across, nothing there. It's a blank cell. So then it will take the one above, cell above. That's the area of the, in this case, cash flow date area. So you say my cash flow is there because come across a blank cell. Or if I had here some letters like I had before there, it takes the cash flow all the way up to here. Keep on checking. Yeah, there's proper date, date, valid date, text characters. So it will go up there and then say, right, my cash flow date area is that there, one row above, because this is not a valid date, it's just text characters. Or if this was a blank cell like here, or if it had a spaces, it's not a valid date. So it will take that as the cash flow area. Or if it was discount factor, in which case it will only be those dates, just the date column. That will be my discount factor dates, let's say. This is all determined by that command, where you have the utility menu, determine CF, DF, dates area, on or off. So if you have it on, then this is what AZMAT System will do. Again, I want my old date back here, so I'm going to use the undo command. There, back again. So if I have it up to here, it comes, so there's a blank cell, so it'll say, right, that's my discount factor date column or cash flow date area, even though cash flow date, CF date 1 is there from there to there. So it then takes the dates from the top cell down to the row above the invalid date. Yeah, from there up to the row above the invalid date. There's no date here. So, or if there was a date which was not valid, for example, if I put in here 29th of February, and let's say 2018, see what happens. The date stays there because it's not a leap year, 2018, and 29th of February, 2018 is not a valid date. So AZMAT System will take the cash flow date area up there, one row above, so that's fine. Or the discount factor date, it will be that. But this is not a valid date. So it does not have to be just some text or space or blank. It also, if it's not a valid thing. So it will treat this, Excel, in fact, treats this as just some text because it's not a date. It does not convert this into any, let me show you. So this is a valid date. So if I go and say copy that and enter it, say here, and I enter it as very special as value. Right? So it's entered it as 44,074, Monday, 31st August 2020. That's what Excel uses for that date as a number. Now, I open this one and I say copy that, select that, and see what happens if I put in that there now and below that. So this special value, see, it's entered exactly the same, 29 stroke 2 stroke 2018. I'll just use the escape key to come out of this copy mode because you can see it's still in the copy mode. Select destination, press enter. Escape, right out. So I'm not ready here. So this is regarded just as text. It's not a date as far as Excel is concerned because it's not a valid date. There is no such date as 29th of February 2018, because 2018 is not a leap year. Or indeed, doesn't even have to be like that. If I enter, instead of 29 days, I put down, 32 days, for example. And it doesn't have to be February, it can be March. So 32 days in the March 2018, of course, that's also invalid. So it will stay like so. It's not a valid date. Okay, let's take this off. So I'm going to press delete to take it off. Press delete to take it off. I don't want unnecessary inaccurate things left on my file. So if here, let's have a quick recap. So before, if this setting is on, determine cash flow or discount factor dates, CFDF dates area on or off. If this setting is on, AZMAT System will determine the cash flow or discount factor date area by simply checking each and every date cell. Remember, it doesn't actually check the amount column. It only checks the date column until it comes across either a blank cell, a cell with spaces, a cell with text characters, or a non-valid date. Then goes one above and says, right, that's my date area. Valid dates up to there, one row above, that's my cash flow date area, that's my discount factor date area, and so on. So, in case of cash flow, a two-column area is used for the dates and amounts. As we saw, cash flow, that. In case of discount factors, only one column area is used for the dates. As long as the setting for determine cash flow discount factor dates area on off is on, as long as the setting is on, AZMAT System will do the above each and every time, even if a valid cash flow or discount factor date area is defined by the user. Right? So even if you define exactly that there, it will still check that. If the setting is off, if that setting is off, determine cash flow and discount factor area, AZMAT System does the following: cash flow dates or discount factor dates column. Note, a valid cash flow area is 2 columns wide, so cash flow is always 2 columns wide. Discount factor is 1 column wide, 1 column wide. If a valid cash flow discount factor dates area exists, as specified in the AZ parameters area. So if you, for example, say, use cash flow date 4, as we have, which is here, cash flow, or if I have it defined here, I don't have it defined here, if I have it defined, let me see up to here, I don't know. If I actually, if I have this one there defined exactly that proper one as CF date or DF date, for example, which I don't have it here. This one, I'm not sure I have it there. DF, this one I have here. Exact date column. DF date 1 from there to there. Those are my DF dates. This contractor dates, this is, for example. So if a valid, so if the setting is off, remember, if the determined cash flow is off, a valid cash flow area, as we've seen, 2 columns. Valid discount date is 1 column. If a valid cash flow or discount dates area exists as specified in the AZ parameters area, AZMAT System does not check the dates column to determine the cash flow dates area. It merely uses a defined range name in the calculations. So if you have that setting off, if this determine cash flow discount dates area on off, if this is off, it'll just simply take whatever you have specified. So if you said, right, there's DF date 1, if it's 1 column wide, basically, if that area is there, it will take whatever you specified as the discount factor in this particular case, for example. It does not check the days column to determine. It merely uses defined range name in the calculations. If a valid cash flow or discount factor days area does not exist as specified in the AZ parameters area, AZMAT System does the dates check as defined above to determine the cash flow days discount factor days area as if the setting for determining cash flow area was on. Okay, so if you have got it, DF date is defined as 1 column wide, then simply use that. If you do not define it, if it does not, or if that particular area does not exist, that particular area as you specified does not exist, then it will check the discount factor days and the cash flow days area as if that setting was on. Right? Does the days check if the area does not exist? The cash flow, if a valid cash flow or discount factor days area does not exist. Summary: if the setting for determining cash flow days area is on, AZMAT System checks the days column cell by cell and determines the appropriate area for the cash flow discount dates factor dates. Right, cell by cell keeps checking until it comes across. Although this area is that is the CF date 1. Keep on checking. Stop there. Oh, there is a blank cell. Right. Okay, I'll use this as the actual cash flow date 1 area. Or if it was saying use the DF discount factor, I'll use those dates as the DF date area. If this setting was off, does not check the days column cell by cell to determine the cash flow discount factor dates area. Instead, it takes the existing defined range name for the cash flow and uses it in calculations. So if you wanted to do quickly something you know what you've defined correctly, then have it as that particular setting off. But if you have it on, then you don't have to keep changing. For example, I could have the CF date area 1, leave not there, one more. So shift key and I click that. So CF date 1, I can define that once. And I can keep changing if you like. The CF date I might want only up to here. So I can very quickly just enter something here. Invalid, sorry, I'm the wrong cell. here something which is not valid. And if I had that setting on, if I had this setting determine that on, then AZMAT system will automatically check it and get the results up to here. But to use the escape to come out of it to keep put the back. So it can quickly use the cash flow up to there without me having to change the name of the cash flow date area up to there, only define it and then use it. So it has its uses. But if the setting was off, then doesn't check cell by cell. Instead, it takes whatever actual named areas are. Next command. Not quite next command yet. Actually, they're going to continue with this. Quite a few combinations. Whether the setting for determine cash flow is on or off, AZMAT system always makes other checks on the cash flow before doing any calculations. So whether this setting determine CFDF dates area is on or off, AZMAT system always does various other checks on the actual cash flow areas. How to change the setting from your own macro. So AZMAT system has a macro specifically for users who wish to change the settings for determine cash flow DF dates area and a screen update from their own macros for use with the AZMAT system. So there are some special commands are here in AZMAT system. The settings can be changed by inserting the following at the appropriate place in a macro. So there's a macro called zcheck echo A, B, where A and B can be either 0 or 1. The first parameter A is for the determine cash flow CF dates area setting. Second will be changed as required and no message will be displayed on the screen. To put the setting back to the original setting at the beginning of the AZMAT session, enter check echo 1, 0 or check echo. Note a setting of 1 means on, a setting of 0 means off. We'll go into that later on in more detail, actually with the macro, but here for now, if I show you here, you have other commands when that we may add this perhaps at a later date or in even a live tutorial. So we'll see what it is. We won't go into that now, although it is in the help file on page U7. Let's go back to the utility menu. Use the control keys to place results on off. So turns on off. Use of control keys to place the results like present value, PV, yield, IRR, DF, and duration directly into the current cells. So remember, when we are using the control keys, Control V or Control Y and so on, that setting could determine whether it should be on or off. So control keys enable validation commands to be used to be used without using the X menu of AZMAT system. So if you have, for example, as we saw in other tutorials, you can use the X menu. I'll come out of it to start from here, add in X menu, and I can use these commands, present value, yield, present value and yield, internal rate of return, and so on, using the actual menu, X menu. Or I can also use the same command, the result, to place the results by, for example, Control B, means enter both present value and yield in these two cells. that way or this way. Present value and yield, like so. So I can use the control keys by entering the results directly in here, or by using the results by using the X menu, using these commands. So this command, utility menu, use control keys to place results on or off. So it turns on or off whether you want to use the control keys or not. Control keys enable validation commands to be used without using the X menu of AZMAT System. They also enable the results to be placed directly into the current cells. This command turns the use of control keys feature on and off. If the setting is on, this command turns it off. If the setting is off, this command turns it on. The user is always notified of the new change setting. Just like these others, user is always notified of the change setting, what it is currently now. Same as all these others, on off. User is always notified of the current change setting. In any organization, whether or not control keys can be used to place the results directly into the current cells the current cell or cells depends first on the setting in the company ini file, AZMAT_01.xls or .xls, X perhaps in there. So in here, for a company can decide. For example, in an investment bank, the main dealers or the managers might decide that the users, to allow the users, the individual dealers or traders, whether they should be able to use the control keys to place the results or not, or whether the users should always use the commands, the valuation commands from the menus, X menu. So the first thing is that the company ini file. So that's why there's a company ini file. And that file is called AZMAT_01.xls. So let's see that where it is. That company ini file would be, let's go here into the utility menu, and we go into AZMAT program directory. Remember, right now we are in the user's own directory. AZMAT program directory very quickly changes, and if I go in here, file, open, and if I see here, I should see if I can find where it is. AZMAT_01. There, AZMAT_01.xlsx, because this is the XL 2010 version. So that is your company initial parameters file. So the company ini file is that AZMAT_01.xls or xlsx in this case. If this setting is off in the company initial parameters file, individual users cannot use control keys to place results directly into the current cells. Right, so it does not matter. Escape, cancel that, come out. So if that setting in the use control keys to place results on or off, if that setting is off in the company ini file, individual users cannot use the control keys. If it's on, they can. So control keys cannot, if company has decided that the users should not be able to use it, it depends on the company ini file. The value of that, whether or not they can use it, depends on the value in the AZMAT company ini file, AZMAT_01.xls or xlsx. In this situation, whether a command is invoked from the X menu of AZMAT system or by using control key, it has exactly the same effect. Results will not be placed into the current cells. So whatever that is does not matter. Whether users use control key or not doesn't matter. Results will only be placed here in the parameters area. At the beginning of each new session, AZMAT system turns this setting to the value found in the AZMAT any id.xls of the current user, provided the setting is not turned off in the company ini file, AZMAT_01. So if in the company ini file, AZMAT_01, this setting is turned on, then the value of the individual user's ini file, that value is used. Unless the initial setting is changed by the user during the session, it will stay the same throughout the current session. So at this point, we will actually, let me have a quick look at it. Let me have a see where we are. We are in here. We'll have a very quickly go through this briefly. And so this one here, for example, displays results on or off. When this setting is on, I'll try and quickly finish if I can, but I think maybe actually speed. Let's not rush it. Let's continue with this on a different session. At this point, we'll stop it because there's quite a lot to go on. So this session will stop at this point, and we'll continue the remainder in a different session, because otherwise this session will become too long. And so we'll stop it now and see you in later session for this tutorial.